It's time for Reason.
You have to be persistent. There's a difference, though, between that and obsession. The progressives and the Democrats in the state of Kansas do not understand the difference in persistence and obsession. There's no good in any way, shape, or form that would come out of an idea like expanding Medicaid programs. It has now turned into an obsession because you have a political agenda, not because it's best for the people of Kansas.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah, welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live across the entire Mid-America region, hailing out of Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV channel 2610, and across the entire Mid-America network. What's up? Welcome aboard. Good morning to you. Great to have you along today on a Wednesday morning. It is a hashtag Freedom-Loving Wednesday, a hashtag Wackadoodle Wednesday. We have not done that in a while, and it's appropriate for today because there's a lot of great stuff happening today. There's a lot of craziness happening today. We're going to have a lot of great guests today, and I'm really, really, really excited about the show coming up for the program today. Welcome in, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you are more than welcome to do so. It is open lines to you. This is your platform to advance conservatism, to discuss ideas, even if you're trying to advance a different platform like non-conservatism. At least you have an outlet for you to be able to vent, to talk, to dialogue. Just a warning, this is not a safe space zone. I know, craziness, right? Wild! But we welcome you anyways. Welcome in, 316-721-8255. We have our Facebook Live feed up and rolling it right now, shared on all the stations that are broadcasting the show. We are up on Twitter at Hoosier Reason, and you can email me as well, Andy at KQAMradio.com. We got a heck and a half of show for you today. It's going to be a lot of fun. Stay tuned in. I do have to start off, though, with either we're losing or we're short on news. We are short on stories to report on. We're not sure what to talk about, or there is stupidity spreading around the mainstream media. Absolute absurd stupidity. Like, I don't know how this is news. Why would this ever be involved in a newspaper in any way, shape, or form? Why would we even cover this? Why is this news in any way, shape, or form? But apparently it is. This is from the Topeka Capital Journal. And from one of the writers there, I'm not going to mention the name, probably not worth arguing. Kobach legal team mistakenly files draft with note. Now you read that and you say, oh, wait a second, no, probably not worth arguing. Okay, he's picking his battles. He's choosing his battles, right? This has nothing to do with the governorship. This is about the Secretary of State position right now and what he's been fighting for and the legal team that he's been going against in the ACLU and the court hearings and everything that's happening there. And he filed some paperwork, and apparently he filed the non-final draft version of the document, and they submitted one of the drafts with notes on it. And one of the sticky notes on there, in all caps in the document, declared a legal point is, quote-unquote, probably not worth arguing. Oh, mon Dieu. I'd like to know how this is news in any way, shape, or form. Now, if anybody else would have filed documents, if you would have gone and you would have, I don't know, registered to vote, or you would have gone and you would have tried to get your driver's license, and you would have gone to the DMV, and you went there and they said, okay, please hand me your papers, and you would have turned them in. And it was, let's say, a utility bill and your birth certificate. And on your birth certificate, you had some notes that said, probably not worth arguing when it comes to my gender identity. And you had a note on there. Probably not worth arguing. Because, you know what, it's already on there. I'm that gender because it's common sense, and I know how to look downwards, and I know what my genetic makeup actually is. There it is. That's my gender. Probably not worth arguing. So you put that sticky note on there, and then you turn it in. And they ask you, can I have your birth certificate, please, so that way I can get you registered to vote and I can get your driver's license ready to roll for you. And you turn it in, and they look at that. What happens? Is that big news? Is that news to where the newspaper comes out and says, Andy Hoosier has note on his birth certificate that says probably not worth arguing right next to his gender identity of when he was born? Or it was born, because we don't know. We don't know he, she, or whoever, or the they if we want to use the the gender-neutral pronouns. Or what was it? Zai. Is that newsworthy? Is that new in any way, shape, or it doesn't make any sense to me. Why is this news? Why is this a story? Now, if you're a writer, if you've written a book, then you know that you have drafts and you write notes on your drafts and you have sticky notes on your draft and you highlight things on your draft because you're going to try and improve them. If you write for, maybe if you're still in school and you're writing a report and you write a report and then you're looking it over and you realize there's mistakes, grammatical mistakes, spelling mistakes, and you're writing notes and you're highlighting things. Or if you're a lawyer and you're looking over an argument or you're looking over a case and you're looking over what the opposition's saying and what they're doing in the transcription, the transcribed conversation that you've had with somebody, and you're writing notes and you put sticky notes on there. And you say, you know what, this isn't working out of the arguing here. Okay, let's focus on this issue over here. That's what this is. And now it's the fact that I don't know if they're trying to come after him saying that he's not organized or his team's not organized because they submitted a draft version rather than the final version. I don't know if it's because they think that probably not worth arguing means that he's just trying to pick fights somewhere and, okay, that point we'll just let slide. This point we're going to hone in on. And if so, so what? This is not newsworthy. And this either shows that we have nothing going on in the state, which we know is BS. We have nothing happening in the state, which we know is total bull, because we have extremely important information coming out on a daily basis. We have extremely major issues happening in the state, the legislature, when they convene on Thursday again, tomorrow. We have major talking points that we have to focus on. I just saw a story from The Hill about 14 states with the lowest unemployment rate that we've seen in a really long time. Record low unemployment rates, which I do want to talk about in a second as well. This is news. These are talking points. But they don't want to address that, obviously, because that's the Donald Trump economy that's actually doing very well. And we'll digress, so we'll talk about that in just a minute. But give me a break. All caps, Kansas Secretary of State's office on Tuesday mistakenly filed an unfinished document in the case over the state's voter registration law. In all caps in the document declares a legal point is probably not worth arguing. Another section was left blank. There was a declaration that, quote, it has been illegal in Kansas to register to vote for years. Well, that must conclude right there that Secretary of State Chris Kobach just hates people registering to vote, right? It appears that this was a quote, by the way, from Mariah Day, one of the Kobach spokesmen. It appears that a member of the legal team originally filed a draft copy instead of the final version of the document. A corrected copy has since been filed. I have no additional comments on the draft that was mistakenly filed. Oh, mon Dieu. Everybody panicky, freaking out, worrying about what the heck we're going to do because we filed a draft copy of a document rather than the original final draft of the document. And that's big news. We need to know exactly what's in the mind of Chris Kobach because everybody's all panicky about what he's doing and how many people he's going to try and deter from actually being able to register to vote. And we need to know that so it's newsworthy when they file the wrong document. At worst, they can try and come after Chris Kobach or try and expose him for not filing his paperwork properly because, you know, it slipped through the cracks. Oh, my gosh. That's never happened to anybody, right? Unbelievable. It drives me nuts. Stupid journalism, stupid commentary, stupid reporting, because that makes, I don't know what that's supposed to do. I don't know what the intention of that kind of story is supposed to bring, other than people that despise Chris Kobach are just going to shake their head and say, of course he would. Drives me nuts. 316-721-8255. On the positive notes, 14 states hit record low unemployment. Do you think that has to do with a response of, I don't know, the Obama economy ticking up finally? I mean, we didn't see economic growth of over 3% in 8 years under Barack Obama. We'll give him a write-off maybe the first year or two because of George W. Bush. But after that, no economic growth under Barack Obama. Donald Trump comes into office, and by the second year in his term, we're already seeing 14 states hit a record low unemployment rate. Can we somehow be able to manipulate that, be able to twist that a little bit, and be able to say that Barack Obama did that over Donald Trump? I'm sure the Democrats will. Oh, look at this. This is the response from Barack Obama. It's finally coming to fruition. It took so long for his economy to take effect, and the recession would have been way worse. And now we can thank Barack Obama for 14 states with unemployment rates that are really low. 14 states have set new record for unemployment rates in the last year, nearly a decade after the recession put millions of Americans out of work. The states hitting new unemployment rates, new lows when it comes to unemployment rates, run the ideological gamut from conservative Texas to liberal California, suggesting a recovery stronger than any particular political persuasion. At the state level, maybe. But we still have the national level to look at. In March, 8 states saw new record lows, including Hawaii at 2.1%, Idaho at 2.9%, Kentucky at 4%, Maine at 2.7%, Mississippi at 4.5%, Oregon at 4.1%, and Wisconsin at 2.9%. California set a new record last month as well. The Golden State's unemployment rate sank to 4.1%. They still have a 4% unemployment rate, but that's really good. Yeah. Way to go, California. Still got people living in tents out on the side of the street. You guys are rocking it, baby, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's the lowest rate recorded since the Bureau of Labor Statistics began keeping track of state-level unemployment figures in 1976. And third of the 12.3% unemployment rate, California notched to the height of the recession in December of 2012. So good. You know what? That's doing well. At least they're starting to see an unemployment rate that's actually doing decent. Maybe we can get people out of the tents on the side of the street. It's a work in progress. But there it is. Now we need to look at the correlation on why that's happening in states with liberal policies and conservative policies across the board. We'll talk about that when we come back.
You're listening to the Voice of Reason on the Mid-America Network.
24 minutes past the hour. Welcome into the Voice of Reason on a Wednesday morning, a hashtag Freedom-Loving Wednesday, hashtag Wackadoodle Wednesday, whatever you want to call it. It's great to have you along with us. 316-721-8255. There's a story out of yahoo.com, when it comes to their news. Hatred of journalists on the rise worldwide, according to a watchdog group out of Paris. Paris, France. Media watchdog Reporters Without Borders says hostility towards journalists is growing worldwide, often encouraged by political leaders. Are they really playing the victim here? Are they really playing the victimhood status? Oh, all these political leaders like, I don't know, Donald Trump, who try and demonize us and try and make us look really bad for hashtag fake news. How dare they do something like that? We're just trying to do our job and report things. And if they don't like what we report, then oh well, because people just need to eat it up because we are the news. And what we report on there, then everybody just needs to go along with, right? Is that their mentality? Now they're the victims? Maybe the Speaking Capital Journal plays the victimhood status of how dare you attack me for a news story that I read and write because it's really important news, and even though nobody really cares about it, and even though that it may happen semi-frequently or it doesn't matter and it's a very simple fix, we need to report on it, and then people can pretend that it's really big news because it's really important because what we report is really big news. The group's annual Global Index of Media Freedom released on Wednesday found an overall rise in animosity towards reporters and a drop in freedoms, notably from Soviet states, but also in countries from the U.S. to the Philippines. There you are, hostility towards the media, and I wonder why. Gee, it makes all sense in the world now, right? This portion of the Voice Reason brought to you by the Americans for Prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, showing up's half the battle already. That's what we try and talk about. That's what we try and advocate for. You can make a difference, and you have a chance to do so tomorrow. Tomorrow is Thursday. The state legislature in Kansas reconvenes tomorrow, and we have an opportunity to help get Kansas back on the right track. Americans for Prosperity is hosting a day at the Capitol in Topeka, and you literally cannot afford to miss this one. It kind of, you cannot afford it to miss this one. This one literally affects your paycheck, affects your income. You get to meet with legislators at 10 a.m. There's going to be a rally starting at 11:30 at the Capitol. I get the honor to be able to host that and MC it. And AFP President Tim Phillips will be speaking at noon. Free lunch will be provided. You can join the freedom fight today. Send a powerful message to our legislators to change the tax and spend habits in our state capital. Thursday's the day, baby. Show up to defend our principles. Do not let the left continue to dictate policy in our state. If you're in the Wichita area, by the way, you do get an opportunity to, Wichita or surrounding areas, you do get an opportunity to take a free bus all the way up to Topeka. Catch the free bus that leaves from Lawrence Dumont Stadium 7:30 in the morning tomorrow morning. All you got to do is reserve your seat by emailing infoks@afphq.org. Again, infoks@afphq.org before it fills up. Americans for Prosperity in Kansas, protecting the American dream by fighting each day for lower taxes, less government regulation, and economic prosperity for all. Let's show up tomorrow and make our voice heard. You and I get the opportunity to do this. Remember what I always say, that I learned this at a very, very young age, that if we don't do it ourselves, it ain't going to happen. We need to show up. We need to make our voice heard. We need to be able to fight. And the legislators need to know exactly what's going to happen. Look, I have a stack of stories that we're going to try and get to today about increase in spending here, increase in spending there. DCF, the Department of Children and Families, the ones who lost like a couple dozen children. Oh, we don't know where they are. They want more people. They're hiring people that don't even have degrees in that field. They want an increase in spending for their department by over $5 million. They want more money. They're inefficient, and they want more money. We have education that's going up. We have a fight that's going to do a last-minute overhaul for Medicaid, trying to expand Medicaid again. They want more money left and right, and it's completely and totally absurd. We cannot allow this to happen. We need to be able to fight this fight and let them know that we are not happy, that we are not content, and that we do not want higher taxes in this state in any way, shape, or form. We are not, by the way, on the list of these 14 states that have a low unemployment rate, a record low unemployment rate. We've been doing very well, and our unemployment rate has been going down. Economic stability has been stabilizing a little bit thanks to Governor Sam Brownback and Governor Jeff Collier. We've been doing very well, but we're not on this list. We're not on the list. Why? Because we're taxed too high. Because the businesses are not expanding the way they need to. And actually, I know that we've talked about it before, but we're in more of a we're more in search of workers instead of jobs. But we need both. We need to grow both. And we need to look at the reason for this. The Donald Trump tax cuts are working. Liberal states, conservative states, states all across the board, they're seeing low unemployment rates, record low unemployment rates, which means that the national economy is doing well, which is giving the states the opportunity to breathe a little bit. And people feel a little more comfortable because businesses are coming back, jobs are coming back, and that's very good. Now, the states that are very high tax, like California, you could see more economic growth, and you could be kicking butt. I mean, you could really be wiping everybody else out of the water because you have such a high population, such a large population, and because you could have some really great potential to actually allow your state to grow. But you're not going to because you're taxing everybody too high. And now that they're actually doing well and more people are working, you're probably going to fight to raise taxes even more so. But you could do very well. I just wish other states would take advantage of that as well. Texas, you guys are rocking it because Texas, well, you understand that you don't want to spend more than you actually receive as tax revenue, and you actually are somewhat a little more responsible than many other states. Crazy how that works, right? Bottom of the hour news coming up. We got lots more to talk about. Your thoughts and calls as well. This is The Voice of Reason.
Andy doesn't tolerate name-calling.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
But if you want to try, call the show at 316-721-8255 right now. This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome into a good Wednesday morning to you. Great to have you along today. This is The Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hoosier, and I'd love to hear from you today. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We have the Facebook Live feed up and rolling today. Shoot me a message on there as well. Whatever's on your mind. Say good morning. Call me a meanie head, a jerk. I don't really care one way or another, but leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you today. I want to shift gears just a little bit. And you heard at the bottom of the hour news the story about the election that happened last night in Arizona for the congressional seat the 8th congressional seat in the state of Arizona as a Republican holds on to it and ends up winning it with 86% of the vote counted last night when CNN reported it, with 52 to 47%. That blue wave really happening, right?
Winning.
Yeah, that blue wave that's really moving across the entire nation as they begin. And of course, CNN likes to say, well, this was a deep red district and it was a long shot for the Democrats to be able to win this in anyways. It's only this one and it's not that big of a deal. They always try and blow it off when they lose. When they win, or they get really close, and it was a really crazy time, and the blue wave's happening. The blue wave's going to start turning this entire nation blue. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. We just saw a Republican win again in a very moderate state like Arizona that had Jeff Flake and John McCain, for crying out loud. I think it's going to be all right. 316-721-8255. I want to shift gears just a bit. We had an interview yesterday. Robert Waples, he was with the Independent Institute and was talking about the Pope Francis, and the progressive mentality that's gone through the Catholic Church, and the change of the tide when it comes to religion versus government, and the socialist mentality that's been coming out of the Catholic Church for a while with some of the statements made on political and social issues by the Pope. A very interesting read with his latest book. This is Robert Waples. We spoke with him yesterday right here on The Voice of Reason. It's Robert Waples on the line with us here. Robert, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing very, very well. Thanks for having me on today.
Good. I appreciate you coming on the show very much so. You wrote a piece about this. Pope Francis questions the existence of hell, and I got to say it kind of baffled a lot of people's minds whether that was a misrepresentation or a mistranslation, or whether it was legitimately what the Pope said of the fact that there's no hell. Were we able to clear any of that up on what actually happened with this conversation?
And so I guess we're still in the dark a little bit. And so let me just preface this by saying that I'm not a theologian by any means. I'm an economist, and
Sure.
I've edited a book called Pope Francis and the Caring Society, in which economists try to engage the Pope on issues of the economy and the environment. But of course, the Pope is probably the most listened to person in the world. There's 1.3 billion Catholics, plus a lot of other people who pay attention to what he has to say.
Sure.
And so when he was quoted as saying this, I just thought to myself immediately, that's something that a Pope doesn't say. That's something that a Pope simply doesn't believe. He probably shouldn't have been having this conversation with Mr. Scalfari, the atheist journalist.
Mm-hmm.
And the Pope speaks so clearly and writes so clearly about so many things, especially about the economy, the environment,
Sure.
that why is he speaking so unclearly about this? Why, for example, did we have the Vatican say, no, he didn't say that, he was quoted out of context, whatever, and not have the Pope then say on top of that, in a homily or something like this. This was like right before Easter, part of his Easter homily, or a homily he's delivered since then.
Right.
He could have said something very emphatically. This is what the Church teaches. This is what I believe. This is what we should all believe. Hell exists. It's a real thing. We have to... Jesus Christ wouldn't have had to atone for our sins if there wasn't hell that was going to be our punishment, right?
Right,
That's
exactly.
what the Church has always taught. So why didn't the Pope come out and say something emphatically about that when he said things emphatically about Satan's existence, for example, but not about hell? Very odd to me.
It is very odd, for sure. And I tell you what, this Pope has actually been making a lot of grounds, because you're right. I mean, he is one of the most listened to individuals, even from people who are not Catholic. I myself am not Catholic, but we always kind of hear what the Pope has to say. And he's made the comments about the border wall with America, as you mentioned, a lot of political issues, societal issues. Every time he says that, all the talking heads begin to discuss about what the Pope had to mention about these political issues. Coming from the economist standpoint here, do you think that when people are not even religious, if the Pope says something like this, how much do they actually take to heart or take with a grain of salt when the Pope says we probably shouldn't be building walls and Donald Trump shouldn't be building walls like this? We need to have love, not walls. And even people who may not be part of the Catholic religion, how much do they take seriously with those kind of statements?
It's very difficult for a single individual to sway public opinion on something. And so I think what you'll see is there are a few instances where a pope will say something and it will sway some people. Because the pope, of course, is embedded in, a 2,000-year history of the church. He can't reinvent things. he's one of many people who is very prominent on the world stage. But each one of them, I think, of the very prominent people, can sway people's thinking on some things. And so one thing that I've heard repeated a number of times in the Catholic press in the last week or so is the results of a new survey of the percentage of people who attend church, weekly. Mm-hmm. And in the last few years, it's been pretty stable among Protestants. But among Catholics in the United States, there's been a drop-off of a few percentage points. And some people are calling this the Pope Francis effect, that you have Francis there now, saying new things, saying some things that people will interpret as like, well, we don't have to worry about these sins as much because God is so merciful. God is very merciful. The Church has always taught that. But they've also taught, for example, that going to Mass on Sunday is a holy day of obligation. But now some people apparently don't think it's such an obligation anymore. And so I think if there's some people who are listening to the Pope, it's probably people like that who are listening for things they want to hear and then can use it as an excuse to do what they want to do, if you know what I mean.
Sure. Do you think from the political front of this, do you think that maybe that's had something to do with the Catholic Church as well, to where maybe some believe that the Catholic Church may have gone, based on their political views, maybe a little too progressive or made some comments that they don't necessarily agree with within the church, and that whether they've progressed in a certain way, they've evolved in a certain way, and maybe some just aren't very politically in line with the church at the time?
And so I think, especially when it comes to more economic issues, the church has pointed out, read the scriptures, read what Jesus has to say. He's very detailed about certain things, but then leaves other things to our prudential judgment. So one thing Jesus never really says is like, you should structure your economy like this. No. Instead, broader precepts like love your neighbor as your brother.
Sure.
Right? So what's the best way for me to love my neighbor? What's the best economic system that'll allow that? It actually, I think, varies depending on the setting and the individuals. In the very early church in Acts, they were socialist, right? They pooled all their resources together and they lived together. We're socialists too, within our families, right? We pool our resources together and stuff. But we've kind of learned that trying socialism on a broader scale beyond a community of people who are really bound together just isn't going to work because the incentives just are lousy. There'll be too many people who try to take advantage of the group as a whole. Instead, tailoring your payoff to actually how much you contribute to a large extent, having secure property rights, thou shalt not steal, right? Those kinds of things are what allow an economy to really prosper. And so that's actually one of the things that we've been talking about in this book, Pope Francis in the Caring Society, is that we'd like to kind of get the Pope's ear and explain to him as economists all the evidence that economists have shown statistically and through their models about how important it is to have economic freedom if you actually want to treat the poor well, if you want to wipe out absolute poverty. Sure. And that's what's been allowing this to happen around the world in recent years as more and more countries have turned away from those things to harnessing the power of a free market economy like the Chinese economy has done, right?
Sure. Absolutely. We're talking with Robert Waples with the Independent Institute with the book Pope Francis and the Caring Society. You're absolutely right. And I find it fascinating. I've always loved this discussion because I've heard it really just recently over the last couple of years of the fact that Jesus was a socialist. And I've heard this over and over and over. And which just because you're right. It says, loving thy neighbor. And they see the loving, caring as the taking care of them and nurturing them and giving them everything as opposed to letting them stand on their own 2 feet sort of thing. And it's always been a fascinating conversation to me because I've always seen it as the old tradition of, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, you teach the man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime sort of thing. Yeah. So
you don't treat your children like children once they become adults.
Exactly.
And so once you are an adult, you need to stand on
exactly.
your own.
Not
you
to
need
mention,
to contribute. You need to give. We need to give, and we can't give if all we're doing is taking handouts.
Exactly. Not to mention the fact that I don't remember where Jesus said, look towards the bureaucrats and government for the answers because socialism is going to take care of you in that sense, as opposed to you being a free, independent individual to become successful on your own without government aid.
Yep. So there are obviously certain people who can't take care of themselves, but there's not that many of them, right? And
sure.
So I'm with you on this. Yeah.
we need to start getting that. So I'm glad that you guys are starting to get that mindset on and being able to approach to them. Do you think that the church can come back from many of these mindsets that he has, instead of saying that we need to go down this road towards maybe socialism or towards the more progressive mindset economically, politically, socially, and maybe we can start steering the Catholic Church back the right direction?
Yeah, and so I guess it's too extreme to say that the Pope has pulled the church over toward socialism. I don't think he's done that once you look at his statements. But he, has moved the boat over toward that side of the river, if you will. And his predecessors, especially John Paul II, said things that were, very strongly in support of, the importance of free market economy kind of things. And so John Paul II knew this because he grew up in Poland under communism. He knew what worked here and didn't work there.
Sure.
Now, Francis, on the other hand, of course, grew up in Argentina. And so if you want to pick a case where the system has just not worked economically, it's Argentina. A little more than 100 years ago, Argentina was in the handful of the most prosperous countries in the world. They had a standard of living there roughly the same as the United States. But then they subsequently adopted kind of a corporatist, Peronist outlook, where the government took more and more power in the economy away from people. And to be successful in business, you had to be a crony capitalism. You had to have friends in the government.
There it is, Robert Waples. He's with the Independent Institute. His book talking about Pope Francis and the way the church has gone. Kind of an interesting discussion when it comes to the political realm of religion and government intertwining itself. Lots more to come on The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Voice of Reason on the Mid-America Network.
Welcome into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 1. It's great to have you along today. What's happening? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Big news of the day. Governor Jeff Collier earns an endorsement as of yesterday. You've been hearing it on the local news, statewide news. Former candidate, businessman, Mr. Mark Hutton, we've had on the show a couple of times talking about the campaign. He had dropped out about a month or so ago, ends up endorsing Governor Jeff Collier, for the governorship race coming up this fall. Quote, Governor Collier's demonstrated he's the kind of leader we need in these difficult times. The fact is, if you're a Republican in Kansas, your nominee for governor will either be Jeff Collier or Chris Kobach. Governor Collier's strong leadership has made that easy choice for me. Very interesting. Now, Ken Seltzer is still in the race. Jim Barnett is still in the race as well. For whatever reason, they're still a little bit lower, lagging in the polls. We're going to do I think we'll have to do another show poll. We haven't done that in a while. On your thoughts on the Republican race, as now it's starting to whittle down to the final few. Your thoughts and your endorsements, your support for one candidate or another. And we'll see where you go with that one. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones here this morning. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is Helen.
Good morning, Helen. How are you?
I'm doing just great.
Good.
And there's a lot of scriptures that prove that Jesus Christ was not a socialist. And in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 10, for even when we were with you, this we commanded you from Christ, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. So any able-bodied person, if you don't get out there and work, then God says, don't feed them.
Mm-hmm.
Let them work and earn their own bread, as it says also in verse 12. It says, by our Lord Jesus Christ, that with quietness they work and eat their own bread.
Sure. Isn't it funny how you hear kind of the mainstream mentality now of where many of the churches, not only the Catholic Church, but many churches are going more towards the progressive side of the aisle, accepting more things into the church and being a little more progressive and liberal when it comes to charity or that sort. What charity is all about? I mean, we're about giving and we're about taking care of individuals, but they almost advocate for it of you have to do it through government programs because that's what government programs are set up for, and therefore you need to be charitable through your taxpayer money and through the government as opposed to you doing it through a personal contribution, which, as you had mentioned with the scripture, and even with common sense, when Jesus was teaching that we need to look towards one individual towards the answers, not towards a government towards the individuals. If you look through the history of, even in the Old Testament, of when you look towards the politicians and you look towards the bureaucrats and you look towards the ones in power for the answers, and they're usually the ones that lead you astray, are they not?
Yeah. Jesus also warns us in Revelations chapter 12, verse 9. He says, "And Satan which deceiveth the whole world."
Well, there it is. There it is. We need to understand, which is why, again, I know a lot of individuals, too, try and say that the founding of the nation was not based on religious messages, and Helen, I appreciate the call. They say that our nation was not built on the back of Christianity or religion in that sense. So whether, again, I've been talking about religion a lot for some reason. I think it's interesting. I think that there's a lot of blending into politics lately. But for those that say that we were not built on religious messages in the nation, I think are completely false. I think that's completely wrong, because even if it wasn't necessarily the most religious meaning for some of the founding of our nation, with the formation of our government, with the checks and balance system that we have, with limiting power in our government, that falls directly in line with a lot of the religious messages. Because, again, no, Jesus was not a socialist. No, religion does not say that we need to have socialist government take care of individuals through a nanny state. No. It's that when we're prospering, when you and I are doing well, then the few that do fall behind, then we can take care of them through private donations, through private charity. If you remember, hospitals and medical care for the majority of American history were not government run. They were not. They were done through the church. If you read any old Western books, we obviously live right in the heartland of the gateway to the West, and where we always had the Western history. If we actually look at some of this, it was all done by the Catholic Church. And back then we understood that it was not the government that would take care of us, but it was our own private individual charitable givings. It was the churches that would do that, and we would do that ourselves. It's not the government that takes care of us. So all these that believe that religion is socialism, and that we need to have this socialist mentality because that's the way that Jesus taught, and that's the way the government needs to run, and that's the way we need to have, it's completely false. Great conversation. Appreciate the call. When we come back, Congressman Ron Estes, he'll be joining us to kick off hour number 2 briefly. Looking forward to chatting with him. This is your show. This is The Voice of Reason. Hour number 2 coming up. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
You have to be persistent. There's a difference, though, between that and obsession. The progressives and the Democrats in the state of Kansas do not understand the difference in persistence and obsession. There's no good in any way, shape, or form that would come out of an idea like expanding Medicaid programs. It has now turned into an obsession because you have a political agenda, not because it's best for the people of Kansas.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray.
Oh, yeah. Making it happen. Doing the thing. Let's hear it.
We don't get fooled again.
That's what we're all about. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 2, broadcasting live out of Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard. I want to jump right into it as we have very limited time with him today. We're going to get him back on in another week or so and try and talk a little more in depth. But today is kind of a special day, and it falls right in line with the special election that happened last night as well. But today is the 1-year anniversary of Congressman Ron Estes holding the seat for the 4th Congressional District here in South Central Kansas, and Congressman Ron Estes back on the line with us. Congressman, congratulations. 1 year, my friend. It's gone by way too fast.
Boy, it really has gone by fast, Andy. But it's been great. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you on this day. That's my anniversary of being sworn in. You know, it's been a whirlwind the last year in terms of the number of things that we've gotten engaged in and worked on and got some important things passed and moving forward. Things like the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that actually working to help get more money in people's pockets. You know, the average Kansan that has a family of 4 is going to get over $2,200 back in lower tax rates just because of that alone.
Sure.
And then all the business growth that's coming out of that, companies that we've talked to that are expanding, giving bonuses and that on top of it. So it's great.
We've seen some really great news, as you mentioned, and I read the story earlier this morning about 14 states so far with record low unemployment rates on both sides of the political aisle at the state level, meaning that the Trump tax cuts, that what you guys were able to get through, are working. We're seeing the response from that, and we have a lot more to go. I know that you've had some really tough votes up there, especially as soon as you got up there. It was pretty intense, and you've already proposed and co-sponsored many bills up there. It's kept you busy, but we're seeing productivity happening little by little, and we just need to keep at it.
That's right. And, some of the things we can get done by legislation, some of it, unfortunately, we can't get through both chambers to get enacted into law. But, President Trump and his cabinet is working to repeal a lot of the regulations that are out there that are also slowing down business and slowing down individuals. And that's just helping a whole lot with our economic growth. The last forecast that they made, it was up 3.3% economic growth recommended or estimated versus the 2.1% that had been estimated. And so that brings more jobs, brings more income, brings more tax revenue in as well.
Absolutely. I know that you're busy today. We just got a few minutes with you here, but coming up on the slate today, you're back in Washington, D.C. I got to see you last weekend for the Kansas State Rifle Association's annual meeting, and that was a blast. But now that you're back in D.C., what's the slate for the next week or so with you guys working up there on the floor?
Well, we've got several things teed up right now. What we're working on this week's a couple things, a couple big things, as well as several other legislation. But reauthorizing the Columbia River Power System, which is important piece for that part of the country in the Northwest. But then also a big thing that's important for us in Wichita and South Central Kansas is reauthorizing the FAA, and that's being worked this week. One of the things that I did and proposed last night is that we add an amendment to that. Part of this authorization is to create an FAA task force on improving flight safety standards. And, so they're setting up this panel, and they're having general aviation folks, airline folks, unions, repair stations, but they weren't including the manufacturers. And we thought that was important enough to have that point of view to help. So we've got that amendment included in the process. I don't know if it'll be a voice vote on the floor or whether we'll actually be able to vote to support that and moving that forward. The other thing that's coming right along after that is the Farm Bill, and they're working. The House committee has marked up their version last week, and so we're going to start that process to move it forward to the floor, which is obviously very important for our community and so many pieces of what we do within Kansas and how we can get our some of the big pieces, safety net related to crop insurance, so that it makes sure that the farmers have that reliability to move forward. Bankers have the confidence and can meet their requirements on the loans that they offer for farming community, and make sure that we keep that part of our economy going forward and moving in the right direction.
Absolutely. I know we got about 1 minute left with you here, but I want to talk to you about the Farm Bill a little more in depth later on in another week or so. But do you feel good about this Farm Bill? I've heard that there's a lot of reforms in it, that we've tried to cut back on some of the social program spending on there and actually focus more so on farmers, which I think was what the Farm Bill needs to be about.
Well, it really is. We call it the Farm Bill, but it's really the Farm and Food Stamp Bill because 80% of the money is related to the SNAP food stamp program.
Sure.
And on the House version that's come through the committee, put a lot of work into helping get folks back to work, so that getting some training so that they're back in the workforce. And as you mentioned earlier, unemployment rate is so low. We need good, able-bodied folks that are able to fill some of these positions, whether it's welders, whether it's refrigeration technicians, and just a lot of things that we need skilled workers for.
Sure, absolutely. Congressman Ron Estes, it's his 1-year anniversary in office. We appreciate what you do, my friend. Keep up the great work. It's a hard-fought battle in Washington, D.C. I know it's been really tough up there already, but we thank you, we support you, and we to keep up the good fight. We'll talk to you again here real soon.
All right. right. Thank you, Andy, and thanks to all the folks in the district that been able to talk about all the issues that are going on, both the ones here as well as when I make visits in the district.
Absolutely. Congressman Ron Estes right there. I know that we'll get him on a little bit later with a little more extended time, but we had to get him on the show for the 1 year anniversary there. Congressman Ron Estes, we appreciate very, very much. And look, I've said this before, and even after some of the bills that were some very difficult votes and some very difficult legislation that we had to decide on, Congressman Estes, even though that some of the votes may have been maybe unpopular for some, the fact that he comes on the show, talks about the votes, talks about the discussion, maybe some of the manipulation or misinformation about some of the bills, and describes and explains some of those is really, really cool, and we love that. We appreciate that very much. I'm very proud to have him here in the 4th Congressional District and representing us. 316-721-8255. Let's take an early break here. When we come back, then we'll open up lines to you. Also, we'll discuss the election that happened last night in Arizona. The blue wave, are they making their tracks, or is it just a bunch of false narrative from the media? We'll talk about that when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, 20 minutes past the hour. Great to have you along today on a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday, hashtag Wackadoodle Wednesday. It's a nuts one today. It's a lot of fun. I got to say, Congressman Ron Estes, again, congratulations, the 1 year in office after his special election last year, getting him up there. We've had some tough votes. We have some really good votes. He's introduced the swatting bill that's, I think, still moving along in the House. Haven't heard much update on that one as of lately, but hopefully that gets through. We've had the Trump tax cuts that he supported. Had some great things working in that sense. We'll get him back on the show to talk about the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill this year, as he mentioned, it should be called the Farm/Social Program Food Stamp Bill, because 80% of the Farm Bill spending goes towards non-farmers, goes towards food stamps, goes towards social programs. And how are you supposed to take care of an agricultural standpoint, an agricultural sense, and farmers under a farm bill when 80% of the budget of the farm bill actually goes towards social programs of people that are not farmers? Doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why we call it a farm bill. If you want to do that, then call it the food stamp bill, where we just throw in farmers as an added value to that, I guess. I don't know. And you'd think on the PR standpoint that it would play a little bit better in that sense too, saying, oh, it's the food stamp bill. Now, conservatives would demonize it, of course, but if you put it the farm bill, then, oh, you're hurting the farmers. No, you're not. You're hurting food stamps. No, you're hurting the farmers. They make up a 20% of the farm budget with the farm bill. So they're really, really important because we care about them so much that we make them the minority of where the money actually goes in a farm bill. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Showing up is the first step, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we always promote. We always talk about it right here on the show. This portion of The Voice of Reason brought to you by the Americans for Prosperity, making the difference by you showing up, and that's what you have the chance to do, to show up tomorrow. Show up tomorrow. Get the day off. Have some time. Enjoy it. Let's make our voice heard tomorrow up in Topeka, and you can help set Kansas back on the right track. Americans for Prosperity is hosting a day at the Capitol in Topeka, and you literally cannot afford to miss this one. You cannot. Here's what's going to happen. You get an all-day worth of events. It's going to be a fun time. Starting at 10 a.m. tomorrow, you get to go up and meet with the legislators, Americans for Prosperity, going around talking to different legislators, and you get the opportunity to do the same thing. There's going to be a rally starting at 11:30. I get to host an MC that I'm really excited, really honored to do so. But also speaking at that will be the Americans for Prosperity president, Tim Phillips. He'll speak at noon. Free lunch will be provided directly after the rally. Join the fight for freedom. Let's send a powerful message to our legislators to change the tax and spending habits that happen in our capital every single day that they're up there. It's time for that to change. We have the 7th highest sales tax in the nation. We have one of the highest income taxes in the nation. We have one of the highest property taxes in the nation. We have some of the highest utility rates in the nation. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Thursday's the day, tomorrow. Show up to defend our principles. Don't let the left continue to dictate policy in our state. And by the way, all of us in the Wichita area and the surrounding areas, you get to catch the free bus. They have a free bus going up to Topeka, leaving Lawrence Dumont Stadium tomorrow morning at 7:30 in the morning. Reserve your seat at InfoKS at AFPHQ. That's InfoKS at AFPHQ.org before it fills up. Americans for Prosperity in Kansas, protecting the American dream by fighting each day for lower taxes, less government regulation, and economic prosperity for all. Let's show up tomorrow and let's make our voice heard, because we have the opportunity to do so. Look, the last week, this wrap-up session, this veto session, whatever you want to call it, is going to be huge. Medicaid expansion debates, tax increase debates, spending increase debates when it comes to the educational finance, the Supreme Court. We have the story, what was it, of more departments, the Department of Children and Families wanting to get close to $5 to $6 million more in additional funding. Are you kidding me? We need to stop that. We need to fight it. And we need to show up tomorrow. Americans for Prosperity, the rally happening tomorrow. I'll be hosting and emceeing the rally. It's going to be a lot of fun. 316-721-8255. If you want to join in, let's jump on the phone lines here. Line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
It's Paul, Andy.
Hey, Paul. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How you doing?
Hey, more fun than we should be having.
That's the truth. I like the earlier segment about Jesus. People saying Jesus was a socialist.
Yes, yeah, the mentality of Jesus, a socialist, the Catholic Church kind of moving towards the socialist mentality, and our guest that we had yesterday, Robert Waples, that we put on, replayed the interview in the last hour, trying to write the book and trying to meet with the Pope and meet with the Catholic Church, trying to say, wait a second, socialism should not be involved in the church.
Yeah, and I guess it began. Most everything I hear on your show, which is a good show, by the way.
Thank you.
I began hearing about 1980, I guess. And then along later, maybe I'm guessing around 85, I'd talk with mostly colleagues at work, etc., and they'd say, "Oh, Paul, you're a bleeding heart liberal." And I used to take that as a compliment because it reminded Jesus.
Okay.
Right, wrong, or indifferent. That's the way I took it. And I was proud to be a bleeding heart liberal. Can we bring that label back?
Bleeding heart liberal?
Yeah.
Oh, it's still there. It's definitely still there. I mean, bleeding heart.
I don't hear it anymore. I miss that compliment.
The bleeding heart liberal is definitely still there. I've used the term once in a while, not very often, because I usually use the term progressive now, because the liberals have kind of latched on and clung on to, and they themselves have done this, they've kind of clung on to the term progressive because they like to see themselves progressing in some type of manner or form. So the liberal policy, the liberal ideology really has kind of clung on to the new terminology of progressivism because it sounds a lot better in today's times. But you're right. I mean, it still is the bleeding heart liberal. And if you're proud of that term, then all the power to you. And I'm glad that you are proud of that.
Very, very proud of that. Yes. It's like the best compliment I've ever had in my life. And I want, maybe I should start introducing myself instead of as Paul. It's the bleeding heart liberal.
The bleeding heart liberal. Well, you can definitely do that. We will definitely remember you on the show as the bleeding heart liberal, and that's okay. And I'm glad and I appreciate you joining the show and listening to it. And I love the dialogues. Look, even though we disagree on a lot of stuff and we have some debates, I love the dialogue and the discussions that we have because we need more of that. And
I want to have dialogue and debate, not arguments.
Exactly.
Arguments don't get you anywhere.
Exactly, and that's what we need. And you coming from the liberal standpoint, the bleeding heart liberal standpoint, and me coming from the conservative standpoint, it's a great wake-up for a lot of individuals to hear kind of both sides of that aisle when they necessarily don't do so, because so far today, in many cases, we have the safe space mentality where predominantly more progressive liberals like to listen to progressive liberal type of shows or news reports.
Oh, I like to listen to everything. If you don't listen to every opinion, you can't form what I think is a proper opinion. If you listen to every way, shape, and form of every opinion and research each one, you don't really know what's going on.
Well, and you don't know what the other side's saying. I used to listen to progressive liberal talk radio in Denver all the time until that station shut down, but I used to listen to them every morning. Now it would get my blood pressure up, and I'd be very worked up about it after listening to what they say, but, I wanted to hear them.
Yeah, if you want to hear someone that will not piss you off, listen to Tom Hartman program.
I do enjoy Tom Hartman.
Yeah, he's a wonk, a nerd, and a geek, but I love the man.
Well, you're right. When it comes to progressive shows and liberal shows, he's one that I could tolerate because you're right. He does his research. He does his backup. He talks about the Constitution, and he does it in that sense. So I respect Tom Hartman very much. I don't agree everything with what he says or does, but I respect him very much so.
Yeah, I often do not agree until after I fact check what he said. And, okay, now I understand.
Sure.
But anyway, I've begun learning about what you call conservatism about 39 years ago or 38 years ago, 1980.
Okay.
I remember watching the presidential debates in 1980. And I just, about 2 years before that, graduated from PSU VTI, Pittsburgh State University Vocational Technical Institute.
Okay.
And I went on I lived at home with my mother, and I was below 21 years old. And my mother made, I think, if I remember right, she made $6,000 a year. So this program called CETA, which was initiated by Richard Nixon, of all people, CETA, Comprehensive Educational and Training Act.
Uh-huh.
And I hear one of the candidates say, and I just graduated from that and got a direct offer at Boeing Wichita and moved from Pittsburgh to Wichita and started my whole career. And
here in conservatism.
That paid for that, and then I hear one of the candidates say, I'm going to do away with the CETA program, which is training people for jobs that don't exist.
Sure. Paul, I hate to cut you off, my friend. We're at a hard break at the bottom of the hour, but I appreciate you hanging out with the show and listening to us each of the day. And the bleeding heart liberal, that'll have to be the new coin term that we have for you when you call in. Make sure to mention yourself like that when you call into the show. I love it. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Taking talk radio to the next level. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. 7:36 is the time. It's great to have you along today. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. I actually listened to this song on the way in this morning. Rolling along, making it happen. Volbeat, baby. Great times there if you want to get bumped up. Yeah, this gets bumped up in the morning. It is time. We do it every single week. It's our county update. As we have Sedgwick County Commissioner on the line with us, Sedgwick County Commissioner, Mr. Jim Howell. Jim, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. I love the rain this morning. This is a great way to start a Wednesday morning.
Yeah, this is nice. It makes you a little drowsy and dreary in the morning, just trying to get woken up. But I love this kind of weather, and I know the farmers are digging it for the wheat, for the little bit of wheat crop that we have that's not in bad condition, and hopefully this will help out a little bit.
I'll save the sunshine for Friday and Saturday. Well, I think the rain on Wednesday is just fine with me.
There you go. There you go. I got to say, last weekend you were up there. You're actually one of the board members for the Kansas State Rifle Association. I loved being able to go up and host and MC the rally. I love being able to partake in the annual meeting that you guys had. It was a great turnout. It was a lot of fun. And what did you think of it coming from the board's perspective?
Gosh, I'll tell you, that was a tremendous event. We have great meetings every year. I hate to use the word meeting because it sounds like it's a boring event, but really it's a lot of fun. You meet a lot of really great people, and they've got great speakers, and you see really cool things, and it's just a great event overall. And I really had a tremendous time. And by the way, I do want to let the listeners know that Andy, our very own Andy from Wichita, on KQAM, was up there and you emceed the rally on the south steps of the Capitol last week. And you did a tremendous job.
Thank you.
It was very well done. It was a great event. Lots of great speakers, and it was interesting. We had the counter protest.
That was
fun. We actually
fun.
Support them too. It was fun.
Sure.
Loved your little post about how they ironically stood next to the woman with the gun defending her children. That was quite funny.
Isn't that crazy? That is unbelievable. The fact that they are the high school students supposed to be learning about history and the greatness of Kansas, and Kansas really being the gateway to the West and really founding our entire state. on individual rights and the right to carry a firearm to protect ourselves with the gateway to that West, and they're sitting there by a statue of a mother protecting her 2 children and her dog with a rifle, and they're protesting guns.
Well, the irony was very clear to me, and you did a great job. I just want to say, if the listeners don't know this, you are true and blue all the way through, Second Amendment staunch supporter, and I love that about you, Andy. It makes me want to listen to you even more. So,
well, thank you.
Appreciate you very much and your good perspective on that. You do a good job educating. You really do know your facts on that stuff, and so I appreciate the fact that you are a leader on the Second Amendment issues here in our community.
Well, thank you. Hey, I mean, it's one of the important ones. Like everybody else said at the rally, that if we don't have the Second Amendment, we don't have the rest of them either. So it's kind of important to hold on to that one.
Yeah. Back to other things. Brian Fry was on yesterday morning. Appreciate him, and he always does a good job. He talked about a joint meeting with county and city yesterday. We did do that. It was a lot of fun. We only do that maybe once a year, sometimes not even once a year. Last year, I should say in 2016, we did it twice when I was chairman for various reasons. We actually met for real business. We needed to vote on some stuff, and we did this in one room. It just made things more expedient. 2017, I think we met one time on EMS issues, and then this year, this is the first time we met in 2018. Of course, this was really not a voting meeting. This was just a meeting for us to discuss the NCAA tournament and how well we did with Wichita and Sedgwick County coming together. We invested a huge amount of taxpayer dollars getting the city ready in terms of cleaning the place up. We also added the north entrance on the Interest Bank Arena. We added bollards for security around the arena. We also added Wi-Fi inside the arena. These are millions of dollars of investment to get those things ready. City, cleaned up the streets, so they did a lot of things to make the city more presentable, from a visitor's perspective. But we're going to do this again in 2021, so it was prudent we got together, kind of talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly, what was good and what was bad, and learned from our experiences and our opinions on how well it went.
Sure.
Really, I think my takeaway from the meeting was really that it's almost all good. I don't think there was really any bad. We just had a great event here in Wichita, and so we are now a basketball city with the NCAA being able to come here and use our venue, and we're very proud of that. You weren't here back in 2005, Andy, but when the citizens of Wichita voted on a 1-cent sales tax, it was a 30-month tax for 1 cent, and it raised a lot of money, a couple $100 million. And one of the things we talked about back then, that the citizens that voted for that, they were told is that we're going to do NCAA games here. And so we've kept our promise. The first thing people were skeptical was they felt like when the tax goes on, it will never come back off. Well, we kept our word on that. And the second thing was we actually did build the arena, and we actually did have NCAA games here. So we set out some goals, and we accomplished those goals, and I think this community should hopefully understand that this is good government around here that's actually doing what we said we would do. Mm-hmm.
I got to ask, and maybe you know the numbers, maybe you don't, but I mean, how much tourism do we see come in the area that generates revenue for the city and for the county? And one of those being like the NCAA tournament that came in for basketball during March Madness and that whole time, which was a lot of fun, and it was great hosting some of those. But then the other ones that may trickle in with maybe other events that we hold throughout the area, or for some of the, Cowtown or some of the Western attractions that we have, Native American attractions that we have around here. Do you know how much tourism that we see for Wichita and the Sedgwick County area?
That's a great question, and I'll tell you, let me try to get the answer for you. But we did bring that question up specifically about the NCAA tournament. We wanted to know what was the we estimated before the tournament was going to be at about $10 million pumped into this community through hotels and restaurants and other things. We don't know if that's what happened or not. We want kind of an exit, a post-event report on that, and they're still gathering the data. We don't even have the data yet. So I would love to know that. I'll report that to you when I get it. In terms of what goes on here all the time, that's a great question. I do know that the state's largest tourist attraction actually is the Sedgwick County Zoo. And in 2016, we had over 710,000 visitors to the zoo. That's a huge venue for our community. There's Sedgwick County Park actually has over 1 million visitors, but they don't pay anything to use it.
Sure.
So in terms of are people traveling to the area for the Sedgwick County Park, probably not. It's mostly for our citizens that live here mostly.
Sure.
The Sedgwick County Zoo actually is a destination, and it brings people in from all over the country.
Speaking of
we've
the
got
zoo,
one of the best zoos in the country. So,
oh sure. And speaking of, I gotta ask you. And you mentioned this actually last weekend when I was chatting with you up at the rally. But you had talked about the elephant exhibit and the elephants that were here and some of the protests that happened with the elephants. But tell the story about the elephants, why we got them, and some of the backlash that we got from some of the individuals of actually not wanting us to consume these elephants.
Well, we have I'll just say it this way: zoos got the rules changed on them. If you want to be a certified AZA certified zoo, they came out and said you had to have both males and females. They had to have at least 3 elephants for that to be qualified.
Sure.
And it had to have certain types of habitat. They don't want bars and concrete anymore. They want a different kind of habitat. So Sedgwick County Zoo board came to Sedgwick County government asking them for some help on some of the financing of that. They had tried for a while to raise money. They did a great job raising money. There's a lot of in-kind. I know one business here in town donated literally millions of dollars towards the zoo for this event, and I should say for this venue. But at the end of the day, we were time limited, and so it got to the end of 2014, and Sedgwick County government decided to go ahead and pump in $5.3 million into that. And then that money was handed over in 2015 when I was here. We were able to construct the exhibit, and then getting elephants is a big deal. This may be one of the last times that we'll ever see elephants shipped out of Africa to the United States because it's gotten so political. We actually had to hire a charter airplane. We had to work with the government over in Swaziland, and there's a number of governments that get involved. And there's a tremendously legal challenge to get all the legal paperwork done. I'll tell you what; those elephants over there were starving. And had it not been for them coming to Sedgwick County Zoo, they would have been culled. CULLED. It means they would have killed them because they just they don't have a way to feed them, and they're just not healthy and they're not thriving. And so they are killing them over there. They're poaching them, as well as because of the drought and the lack of food. Even the government can't keep them alive in the protected areas. It's a tremendously big challenge for Swaziland. So we brought 6 elephants over there from Swaziland over to Sedgwick County Zoo. Very, very complicated effort to get that done. But they're here, and I call this a 5-star hotel. These elephants are getting air massages, and they get medicine. They get all the free food and water they want. It's a 5-star hotel for elephants, and it's wonderful. And it's funny to me that some of the animal rights folks really got engaged in that and protested the transfer of these elephants from Swaziland to Sedgwick County Zoo. They were upset, and they did come, and they wrote us letters, and they got engaged in an opposition effort. And here's the thing: we pointed out to them that had they not come here, they would have been killed by now. And they're like, they would prefer that. It's strange to me that they would rather have them in a natural habitat. By the way, it really wasn't a natural habitat; it was a fenced area, a preserve.
Sure.
And they're starving. There's no food. There's no trees. There's no grass. It's dirt, and it's fenced. And if they let them out of that, they would starve to death entirely, or they would be poached. And so, the best thing these elephants could have ever had happen would be selected to come to Sedgwick County, and simply be given the 5-star treatment every day. They've got everything you could ever want for an elephant is here, and they're protected. They're well fed. In fact, when they got here, they gained a lot of weight. One of the things we track is what was their weight when they got here and what's the weight now. And they've really gained a lot of weight, which is a good thing.
Sure.
Because they were starving when they got here.
Wow.
So it's interesting to me, the liberals out there that are, animal rights, and I think we all love animals. Nobody wants to see animals abused or harmed in any way. But these animals were being harmed because what was happening in their natural land wasn't going to help them survive. And we brought them to an awesome habitat. And by the way, if you've not seen it, Andy, I'm not sure if you've seen it. I don't know if you have.
I have. Yeah, we saw it last summer after you opened it.
This is the one of the largest elephant exhibits in the world. I mean, we really have a fantastic exhibit here, and it's beautiful. It has fescue grass. It is amazing, and the elephants are just thriving there. They actually have a lake they can go into, and they play in the water. We actually have some pictures of all 7 elephants. Stephanie is our matriarch that's here. Has been here for several decades. But Stephanie plus the 6 new elephants together playing together in the water all at the same time. We have pictures of that. I just obviously, if you can see an elephant smile and have fun, these elephants are having a great time.
I love it.
So I think it's a great thing that we did that. I think Sedgwick County, overall has supported the decision for us to fund that 50% of that exhibit and bring them here. And so I also do support that. I'm glad we did that. It was the right thing to do.
Absolutely. We got just a couple minutes left here, but I do want to ask you, coming up, I know it's kind of slow right now for the county-ish, other than some of the discussions and some of the sitting back and gathering information and research about what's been going on, and as you mentioned with the NCAA tournament. But over the next few months, it's going to be summertime, and we will get into the budgetary debates. The city had mentioned with Brian Fry yesterday, he had mentioned about some of the debates that are going to happen on budgetary stuff and maybe starting to weed out some of the spending. Is that kind of the same conversations that the county is going to start having here relatively soon on budgetary issues?
Well, yeah, absolutely. The city spends about $100 million more than the county does, and we have 5 commissioners who basically get to at some point we need to vote on a budget, and as Brian said, we can't go in debt. Well, I should say we have to balance the budget. We are allowed to use debt, but we're not allowed to have a budget that isn't in the black. And so at the end of the day, we've got to either cover any shortfall with savings or use debt. I'm not a fan of debt. We do tend to use a little bit here and there. In fact, we paid off a lot of debt since I've been here, and that's one of the things I'm really proud of. But this budget discussion really goes on most of the year. It starts in the fall with our departments basically coming up with spending requirements, spending ideas, and things they want to do. They begin to collate their information. Then it comes to a budget retreat. We do that in February. We already had the budget retreat this year. I think that's what Brian was talking about yesterday, was a budget retreat for the city of Wichita. So we're actually maybe a little bit ahead of them on that regard. I don't know for sure, but we have budget hearings that start here in just a couple of weeks from now. We have budget hearings that start, and we'll have about 2 weeks worth of budget hearings. They're all day. I should say they're basically could be 3, 4, 5 hours a day of budget hearings, and so it's a fairly lengthy process to go through basically every single page of a budget, of a proposed budget. And then eventually the manager will present a manager's budget recommendation, and then we go in and we make all kinds of changes to it. We add things, we subtract things. Eventually we have a final product and we get to vote. And we have to do that by about the middle of August. And so it sounds like a long time, but really it's a lot of work to get a budget done. And so we are in the middle of that. You mentioned we're not doing a lot right now. Well, actually we are. We're doing all of that. We've had 3 really, really long meetings back to back. The last 3 weeks, we've had 3 long meetings. We don't have a meeting today because it's the last Wednesday of the month. We don't have a meeting next Wednesday because we got Wichita Prayer Breakfast, and we also have the County Commissioners Association meeting, which happens to be in Sedgwick County this year. We're a host county this year.
Sure.
And Chairman Dennis has to speak at both events. And so we decided not to have a meeting on May the 2nd. So we're going to basically pile up 3 weeks worth of work. On May 9th, it's going to be a doozy.
It's going to be a fun one to watch, for sure.
There you go.
Very good. I love it. Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell, as you mentioned, no Sedgwick County meeting today or next week for the county, but it's going to come up very soon, and you guys are going to have a lot of fun with that one. Jim Howell, we always appreciate it, my friend, coming on each week, talking about the county issues, keeping everybody informed on what's happening in the surrounding area. Hopefully, you've been able to see a little bit more engagement, be able to see some people that are really fired up. We got about 30 seconds left, but I do want to remind people as well that you as well, to each week or every couple of weeks or so, you go to Riverside Cafe and you kind of have your own little coffee meetup as well in case people do have questions too, right?
Yeah. Other than the second Friday of the month, I have another business meeting I do on second Friday of the month, and it's a business meeting down on the south side of Sedgwick County. But every other Friday, all the other Fridays, I'm at Riverside Cafe and I do coffee. I buy coffee. If you want to come visit with me, I'm there from 7 to 9 a.m. and I buy the coffee. Come on in and sit down and just chat about whatever you want to talk about. I'm there to solve problems if possible, or just simply to have a great discussion. That's Riverside in Derby from 7 to 9 every Friday, except for the second Friday of the month. Very good, very good. Jim Howell, Sedgwick County Commissioner, we appreciate it, my friend. We'll talk to you again next Wednesday. Awesome, Andy. You have a great week, sir. Hey, you as well. Always fun there. 7 minutes at the top of the hour. We got some calls on the line. Stay here. We'll get to you as soon as we come back. This is The Voice of Reason.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 2. Lots more to get to today. We haven't even touched on, it's funny, I always have a stack of papers with news and articles and stories and stuff to get our minds going in the morning. And this morning I have not touched really any of it at all. We have the election that happened last night in Arizona, the 8th Congressional District, and the Republican winning that one. The blue wave, baby, that's supposedly taking over everything. That actually didn't quite happen, but it was cute. It was a nice try. Well done. At least we tried. Well done, Democrats, winning that one with 86% of the vote coming in, 52-47 for the Republican. Also, I do want to touch on, and I don't know if we'll have a chance to do it today. We may do it tomorrow, but utility rates, that's going to be a big debate happening in Topeka, trying to lower some of the utility rates. We are one of the highest in our region when it comes to utility rate levels in the state of Kansas compared to some of the other surrounding states. So we'll talk about that maybe tomorrow for that one. Plus, coming up in hour number 3, Jeff Glendening, Americans for Prosperity. We chatted with him a couple days ago, but as you know, tomorrow, we've been talking about it, is going to be the big rally, the Meet the Legislators at 10 a.m., and then the rally at 11:30. I will be emceeing that, again, like I did with the Second Amendment rally in Topeka last Friday. It's funny, I've never been to Topeka, and then, of course, I go up there twice in a week's time. I'm really excited, really honored. I appreciate them allowing me to go up and emcee that one. Some great speakers. I'll say a few words. Jeff Glendening, I believe State Senator Ty Masterson, along with the president of Americans for Prosperity, Tim Phillips, will be speaking as well. So it's going to be a heck of a rally. If you can make it, do so. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll talk with Jeff Glendening coming up in hour number 3, along with your thoughts and calls. We have some calls waiting on there. Stay tuned. We'll get to you as soon as we get back as well. As usual, this is your show. It's not mine. It's yours. You run this, baby. What's on your mind? It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is the Voice of Reason. Stay tuned. Hour number 3 coming up.
Speak. It's time for Reason.
You have to be persistent. There's a difference, though, between that and obsession. The progressives and the Democrats in the state of Kansas do not understand the difference in persistence and obsession. There's no good in any way, shape, or form that would come out of an idea like expanding Medicaid programs. It has now turned into an obsession because you have a political agenda, not because it's best for the people of Kansas.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 3, the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heartland of America, right here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. The replay of it from 6 to 9 in the evening on KGPT TV, channel 2610 as well. We're all over the board. We're on the TuneIn app. We're at KQAMradio.com, which, by the way, I do want to talk more about the website a little bit later, as I have been working on it, and it's just about complete. It's very, very close. We have our promotions up there, anything that we're working on. We do have our recap of the Second Amendment rally and the Kansas State Rifle Association's annual meeting that we had. We have that recap on there, and we have our new promotion up there as well. That is with Americans for Prosperity. This hour of the Voice of Reason brought to you by Americans for Prosperity. We talk about it all the time. Showing up is the first step to making a difference. What do they say when you go to a sporting event, that showing up's half the battle? That the mental aspect's half the battle? It's the same way with politics, and you have a chance to show up. It's tomorrow. Tomorrow, Americans for Prosperity hosting a day at the Capitol in Topeka, and this is something you literally cannot afford to miss. We're talking about your taxes, talking about spending, government spending, and where your money is going. You need to be there. It's going to be a full-on event. Meet with legislators at 10 a.m. The rally is going to begin at about 11:30. I'll be emceeing that. I'm really excited to do so. Americans for Prosperity President Tim Phillips speaking at noon. State Senator Ty Masterson speaking. Jeff Glendening from Americans for Prosperity, going to be speaking at that. It's also, by the way, free lunch will be provided for this. It's time to join the fight for freedom. Send a powerful message to our legislators to change the tax and spending habits that's been going on in Topeka for a really, really long time. Tomorrow's the day. Show up to defend our principles. Don't let the left continue to dictate policy in our state. And by the way, all of us in the Wichita area, if you choose to do so, you can take the free bus up there. It's free. All you got to do is register for it and just be able to reserve your seats. But you can. It's going to be leaving Lawrence Dumont Stadium, 7:30 tomorrow morning. Reserve your seat at infoks@afphq.org. That's infoks@afphq.org before it fills up. Americans for Prosperity in Kansas, protecting the American dream by fighting each day to lower taxes, less government regulation, and economic prosperity for all. It's time to show up tomorrow and make our voice heard. To talk about that event and more with Americans for Prosperity, Jeff Glendening back on the program with us. Jeff, what's happening, my friend?
How are you, Andy Hoosier? It's
good
to talk to you again.
It's great to talk to you after so many days. It's happened here. I'm really excited. This event tomorrow is really going to be the wake-up call I'm hoping that many individuals have. We have tomorrow, everybody, all the legislators reconvening back in Topeka, and they're going to be talking about some really heavy issues in this last week, trying to ram everything through the fast and furious, as they always love to do. And this is our way to make them realize that we're here and we're really upset of the fact that there are so many tax and spending habits that they're doing right now.
You're absolutely right. And tell you what, we're hearing reports. I just heard some reports last night. They're going to try another big Medicaid expansion push here, possibly even tomorrow as they attempt to work another budget. We'll see what happens with that. But boy, this is right. You're right. This is the time of year they start cramming things down people's throats. We want to get people up to the Capitol tomorrow, like you said, middle of the day. Let's let our voices be heard saying, no, we can't afford this. We need to be responsible. We need to be reasonable.
We could be potentially looking at over $1 billion in additional spending that I don't know where we're going to get the money for unless we raise taxes again after, and we've mentioned it so many times, the retroactive tax from July of last year to the new tax increase that from January of this year. Now we're seeing $540 million plus going into education over the next few years. We're seeing a push for $20 million for the judicial system. We're seeing a push for close to $5 to $6 million for DCF, for the Department of Children and Families. We're seeing a push for Medicaid expansion that could be potentially $1.5 to $2 billion. I mean, overall, we could be looking at $2 to $3 billion in more spending. I don't know where we get the money for this stuff.
Yeah, Andy, we're a state of less than 3 million people. We've been, pretty stagnant with that growth for a while. I'm not a smart man, but do the math on that. It's not. We can't afford it. We're already taxed high, and I think people recognize that. You said it. I heard it earlier in your program today, talking about where we are on sales tax in the country. We can't afford this.
We can't do it. No, and in all the other states above us, when it comes to sales tax, for example, they're just flat out sales tax states. They don't have any income taxes. We not only have the sales tax that's extremely high, but we have the income tax that's going up and up and up. Then we have the property taxes that are going up and up and up. Then we're talking about internet sales taxes that are going to be going into effect pretty soon. I mean, I don't know what they're not taxing and what we can actually preserve our money for. I really don't know what we have left.
Andy, if you find something that they're not taxing, please do not let them know. They will be running as fast and as furiously as they possibly can to go tax it. It's just the mentality right now in Topeka. If it moves, tax it. If you see it, tax it. It's amazing.
It is unbelievable. I was reading a story earlier in the show as well. 14 states reported record low unemployment rates. Now, we've been doing relatively well, and I got to give credit under Governor Sam Brownback that we did lower the unemployment rate dramatically in the state of Kansas, that we saw stability in the job force, where we saw the rising of children out of poverty and families out of poverty because of the tax cuts that we did. But now I fear that we're going to start slipping down that other way. Are you concerned about that as well? With all these high taxes, I don't know how many people are going to be able to keep their head above the poverty level if they're just risen above it.
Right. All these taxes are paying for government-type jobs. Yes, we do need some government-type jobs. I'm not saying that, but let's focus on private sector jobs. People that are taxpayers, they're not the ones consuming the taxes. We need to really put a strong focus on that. Let's grow the economy. That's what we're trying to do. That's not done through government growth. That's done through private sector job growth.
Exactly. And one thing that we are hurting on is the workforce. Right now, we're looking for more workers than we are actual jobs, because many of the jobs are there, but we don't have enough people to be able to work them. And as you mentioned, I mean, the growth of the population's been kind of stagnant for a while, and we need to kind of kick that into gear. Do you really think that higher taxes across the board are going to entice people to want to move to the state of Kansas or stay here if they're young if they're young kids?
Yeah, well, what kind of an advertising campaign would that be? I would challenge that marketing person. Hey, come to Kansas. You're going to pay more for the same services here. It's awesome. We love paying taxes here in Kansas. Come be a part of what we're doing. We're paying more.
Yay.
It's great.
Yay. That's a great campaign right there. We're talking with Jeff Glendening, Americans for Prosperity. When it comes to the tax rates, how much do you guys focus on the agricultural side of this and farmers? I know farmers have been hurting dramatically just with the commodity prices at the national level. Then we saw the story about the trade with China that's going to be affecting sorghum and milo, which obviously, we produce about 50% of the nation's milo and sorghum here in the state of Kansas. And as we talk about property tax rates just by itself, I mean, these tax rates got to be killing the farmers and the agricultural side as well, don't they?
Right. You look at every sector, obviously including ag. We've got to do something to, help these folks out. It's not about taxing more. It's about let's cut some red tape here for starters.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about this earlier in your program. With the ag bill that's coming up, farm bill that's coming up, it's 20% of the farm bill is about agriculture.
Sure.
And 80% of it is about food stamps. We need to start having a serious discussion about farm policy, but let's talk about farm policy and let's not, tie it in with other things.
Well, come on, it's the bleeding heart mentality that if you vote against something like the farm bill, then you hate farmers, even though 80% of it's not actually having anything to do with farmers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to let the markets decide and help grow agriculture, not just in Kansas, but across the United States.
Exactly. Talk about the rally tomorrow. As you mentioned, it's going to be Meet the Legislators at 10 a.m. If people are going up maybe on the bus that's going to leave at Lawrence Dumont Stadium 7:30 tomorrow morning, they can ride their way up there and be able to have their voice heard in that sense. But talk about what's going to happen tomorrow. What is Meet the Legislators? Do they actually get to go to their offices and just meet with a lot of legislators advocating for what we need to do?
Yes, we'll help you find your legislator. A lot of them they may be sitting on the House floor or the Senate floor in the morning, but hopefully, you'll be able to see them coming in and out of the House floor. Stop by their office, let them know that you were there.
Sure.
And that's the big thing. They need to know that people are paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
For too long in Kansas, people just didn't pay attention, and that's what we're really about. It is bringing the legislature to the people, bringing really across the board, federal level, state level, local level, even.
Sure.
It's about giving activists a platform to be engaged in their government, and that's what tomorrow is about. Coming to the Capitol, middle of the day we'll have the rally, but encourage folks before and after. Obviously take a tour of the Capitol. It's a beautiful building. But let's go. Let's go talk to your legislators. Let them know you're there and that you're watching.
Sure. And that's what we have to do. I mean, meeting with the legislator is not only important to do when they're home, but also when they're in Topeka. Because sometimes you go up to Topeka and you kind of get lost in the whole atmosphere of the politics and going into the chambers and meeting with the different special interests and haggling with other individuals. And sometimes a lot of legislators lose sight of what's really important and what they're there to fight for. And they can get swept into if I just compromise this a couple of times and I'll be all right and I can go home and be proud. And we don't want that anymore. We've done that for way too long.
We have. They're only there for 90 days every year. It's not a full-time legislature, which I'm thankful for. The less time they're in Topeka, the less damage they can do.
Yep.
But so they're there for 90 days. They get a lot of things crammed down them in that short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
They're hearing about issues that, quite frankly, they've not heard about before.
Sure.
Whether it be the minutia of utilities laws or whatever it is. So they've got, it's a tough job. There's no doubt about it. And they don't, quite frankly, get paid very much for doing it.
Sure.
But it is easy, like you said, just to get lost and to lose sight of why you ran in the first place. And that's what we're about. We want to remind them that this is what we're about. And we actually took the time to come to you in Topeka That's how important this is.
Yep. The meeting with the legislators at 10 a.m. at 11:30 will start the rally. I got the honor, and I appreciate, again, you guys allowing me to MC this one. It's going to be really exciting. You're going to say a few words. State Senator Ty Masterson will say a few words. And even the president of Americans for Prosperity, Tim Phillips, he'll be in town speaking as well. So it's going to be a lot of great information to try and hopefully rally enough people to get excited and fight for what's right up there in Topeka.
That's right. We're excited about having people there hosting you all. There's lunch provided. We just need to know that you're coming so we can have a lunch there for you. But and as you said, we're meeting at 7:30 at Lawrence Dumont Stadium. We'll bus up to Topeka, and we're going to have a great day. We're really excited about it.
It's going to be great. Jeff Glendening, I appreciate you coming on the show again after a couple of days, my friend. It's going to be a great rally tomorrow. Hopefully everybody can show up for that for a Thursday. And I appreciate you coming back on the show, my friend. We'll do a recap afterwards.
Thanks, Andy. I appreciate it a lot. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Hey, there it is. Tomorrow we're going to make that happen. Jeff Glendening, Americans for Prosperity, cutting taxes, focusing on prosperity, on growth, on the way that we need to, both for the state and for individuals. Was coincidentally, when the individuals actually grow and tax rates are low and you can actually flourish as an individual, we kind of do that as a state. It's really funny how all that works. 20 minutes past the hour. We're going to take a break. It's open lines to you for the rest of the show. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
"25 minutes past the hour. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. It's great to have you along. 316-721-8255. It's open lines to you for the last bit of the show, the last 45 minutes or so. I want to hear from you. These types of rallies, these types of things are important for us to be involved and engaged in. I know that it's hard. I know that sometimes it's difficult. I know that sometimes we may be working and it's very difficult to get off during the week. Make the phone calls. Send the emails. Knock on the doors. They work for us, and sometimes they lose sight of that. Not all of them, but many of them. Sometimes they lose sight of who they work for. Socialists and progressives, they want to control. They want to dictate. They want to say, I'm in power, you put me in power, so therefore you're looking to me for the answers, and I'm going to create a world to where I control you because you put me in that position to be able to do so. And that's not how this system works. We do not have a caste system in this nation where you're born into a certain poverty level or a certain income level and you stay at that income level for the rest of your life. We do not have that. I don't care what type of claims that we have, whether it's a racist claim, whether it's an income inequality claim. How many businesses have grown from nothing, from one shop, from one mom and pop shop that started and grew into a huge franchise? How many individuals started off extremely poor and became doctors, surgeons, lawyers, politicians, leaders? How many of them were able to do it? We have a system in this nation, unlike any other in the rest of the world, to where we can be literally, the American dream is still here. You can be anything you want to be. Anything you want to be at all. You have that opportunity. No one is going to take it away, and progressive liberals are not going to take it away. They can try, but they're not going to take it away. Bernie Sanders wanting to say that we need to take care of everybody does not help society. It's the mentality of we need to take care of you when we shouldn't be taking care of you. Feed the man for a fish. You give the man a fish for a day. You feed him for a day. Teach the man how to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. Baptism under fire sometimes even. How many times have you walked into a job and you've tried to learn the job and you're just trying to learn? No one's really teaching you. No one's trying to help you with it. You're just trying to figure it out on your own. And you don't want to fall behind because you don't want to lose the job after you just got it. So you just kind of go along with it, and it's that baptism under fire. That's sometimes what we need. We don't need the hand-holding. Sometimes you need the hand-holding. And I'm not saying that all social programs are bad and evil and terrible. They're there for a reason temporarily. And sometimes we need the handheld, but sometimes you need the fire lit under you. Sometimes you need to be thrown to the wolves, and you need to say, go for it, go at it, and make it happen. Sink or swim. Sometimes, I mean, I'm kind of the tough love kind of guy. I like that mentality. Sink or swim, baby. I've done that my entire life. I've gone into jobs to where things are just haywire, and you just try and figure it out as you go along. But that's what you do. And you grow from it, and you learn from it, or you sink. And you say, I can't do it, and you walk away. But we have a system to where you can be anything you want. If you put your mind to it, if you put your attention to it, if you put your soul with it and you know the vision of where you want to go, you can do that. And by creating this $15 an hour minimum wage at the federal level, creating universal health care, creating these social programs, do you think that's going to help anybody other than staying stagnant to where they are right now and being comfortable where they are? No, you're not supposed to be comfortable where you're at. You're not supposed to be complacent at all. The progressives and the socialists, the Bernie Sandersites, they always hold up this story and the articles about the studies, quote unquote, about how Denmark and Sweden, a lot of these other nations who have socialized health care and all these socialized programs, how they're the most content or they're the happiest in the world. And that's not true. They're the most content. They're the most complacent. Complacency is bad all the time. Even if you're on the uptick on your career and you're tracking and you're doing very well and you're growing and you're succeeding, that complacency, if you just sit back and say, oh, I'm happy right where I'm at, I'm cool, then you lose and you've fallen behind. Never be complacent. Never be content. Never be happy with where you're at. Be content and be grateful for it, but know that there's always more that you can do. And when you have that type of mentality, the sky's the limit and you can. The American dream is alive and you can be anything you want to be in the world, including how much income that you want to have coming in before the government takes it away, of course.
The fastest growing radio show in Kansas.
What? How's he do that?
That's what I'm talking about.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Oh, yeah, we're just making it happen. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason on a Wednesday. It's a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday, hashtag Wackadoodle Wednesday, whatever you want to call it. Welcome aboard. It's great to have you along. It's open lines to you for the last half hour. What's on your mind? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, there is some big news, ladies and gentlemen. And as you may have heard it with the national news at the bottom of the hour, but the Bush-appointed federal judge has ruled on DACA. Judge John D. Bates, U.S. District Judge in Washington, became the third judge to rule against the White House's plan to end the DACA program. Now, what they did judge on was not the fact that it was just bad to end it, but that it was an arbitrary move and that they need more description on exactly how they're going to end it and why. This is, first off, the manipulation of the media by saying, oh, nope, you can't end it, can't do it, nope, not going to happen, nope, the judge ruled against it. That's not the case, and that's not what happened. What did happen was just saying their description and definition of why they wanted to end it was a little arbitrary, so therefore they have 90 days to be able to clean that up a little bit. So, no move there. The second point is who cares? Who really cares? Do you really care that a judge says, you know what, there's a federal program that was started by a progressive president to allow amnesty to individuals, and we're going to end that program, and it was never there beforehand, and it shouldn't have been there in the first place, but now you're not allowed to end it. Do you really believe that? Do you really believe that? I don't think so. So I'm going to say on this one, when it comes to the federal judges, we don't care anymore. Yeah, there you go. We don't really care. We're going to continue to do it. The president can say, look, President Obama signed that one himself. President Donald Trump can repeal it by himself. It really does not matter. Now, if we have the court's blessings on there, then all the power to us, and that just helps the case even more so. But who really cares? Who cares what the judges say on this one? No, it's unconstitutional to do that. No, it's not. If that were the case, then DACA would have been in place, I don't know, when we founded the Constitution, actually when we put this immigration platforms in place in the early 1800s, or it would have been in place when we did the Ellis Island type of immigration style in the early 1900s. It would have been in place then. If we try to repeal it and they say it's unconstitutional, that's a lie. Absolute flat-out lie. And you can tell based on progressive activist judges with a certain agenda. So the third judge apparently shooting down the DACA repeal, and Trump did say that because Congress didn't act on it, then he's going to do it himself. Look, the Democrats are hoping for this. And they're hoping that it gets shot down because they want to keep it in. But they realize that if they bring immigration up again, they're not going to have the votes to do what they want to do, because we actually had it. We had an immigration bill. If you remember, just a few months ago, we shut down the government because of immigration during a budgetary debate, and the Democrats shut it down. The Schumer shutdown that said that we're not going to discuss the budget until we actually renew DACA and we do immigration reform. They wanted it. And we stopped it, and we shut down the government, and they caved, and they backed down, and they reopened up the government again. Then they said, fine, all right, this budgetary bill is only for 2 months, or 2 weeks, whatever it was, just a few weeks out, and we need to do another continuing resolution. We need to do another omnibus bill. We need to do this again, and I guarantee you promised us that we'd have an immigration bill by then. So what happened? We gave them an immigration bill. We gave it to them. And the House passed a solidly conservative bill that would end chain migration, that would put more restrictions on, that would tighten up the belt and the girdle a little bit when it came to immigration, that would do some really, really good things, that funded the wall. And then when it came to DACA, we would allow them to be in here for, what was it, like 2 years or something? And then they had to be able to and their process was that they either had to start the naturalization process, or they had to renew a visa or get a visa, or else they had to go. And they had time to do that. We gave it to, and we compromised on the DACA deal while we did our conservative agenda for everything else. The House passed it, and it went to the Senate, and it sat there. And we talked with Congressman Ron Estes on that one when it passed, and it was a very good bill, and it had 4 points to it, and it was a solid conservative bill, with the one compromise that we had on there was DACA. We gave them what they wanted, but the Democrats said no, because if we voted it in and we passed it with a Republican majority in the House and a Republican majority in the Senate and a Republican president that signed on to it, then Republicans would get the credit for the reform of immigration. Republicans would get it, and even though they got their DACA, they would lose everything else. They would lose their fight to stop funding the wall. They would lose the fight for chain migration. They would lose the fight for this, lose the fight for that. They did not like that. So they dropped immigration completely. Have you heard a Democrat mention immigration since February when we shut down the government? Have you heard them? No. They haven't heard them a bit. They haven't brought it up. They haven't talked about it. So Trump said, hey, I'm going to take it into my own hands now. You guys are not acting on this. We need to deal with it. It's expired. It's floating around. We're sitting in that gray area right now, which Democrats and progressives love, by the way, is they love sitting in that gray area because they get away with more shenanigans. They get to pull the wool over our eyes. They get to play in that gray area of what's legal and what's not legal right now, because DACA may have expired, but no one's repealed it or said that we're going to renew it. We don't know. So as long as that's the case, then they get to continue to just do their own thing while it just sits in stagnation. The progressives love that. So Trump said, we're going to do it our own way. Began to repeal DACA. Now this is the third judge, oh mon Dieu, the judge that's actually saying no. Give me a break. Give me a break. Who cares what they have to say? Sure, let's report it and let's refile it a little bit with a little more explanation so it's not as arbitrary on what we want to do with repealing DACA, but just say it flat out, we're going to repeal a DACA. If you're a DACA recipient, you need to you're going to have X amount of time, 6 months, year, whatever, to either sign up for naturalization and start the process, or to be able to get a green card or a student visa, work visa, whatever you want to get. Or if we find you and you're on the streets and you only try and say you're with DACA, you will leave. And you will go and you will be deported. And during the census, when we do the census in a little bit the next year, we will have on there, are you a U.S. citizen? And if not, what category do you fall under? Work visa, student visa, DACA recipient. So we can document you. And if you don't do it, then you know what? If we find you, we will punish you. We have to start taking a firm stance on this. We cannot be weak. We cannot be wavery. We cannot be wishy-washy, cannot be mushy on this. We have to take a firm stance. The House passed a solidly good bill months ago, and the Democrats have not brought up immigration since. They've wanted to. They're desperate to do so. I'm surprised that they haven't, because I'm pretty sure that they're going to try and use it for a campaign tactic to say that we need to preserve illegal immigrants coming into the country. We need to protect this, protect that. We need to protect immigration is what they're going to say. But they're going to try and use that as the talking point for the campaigns. Well, at the same time, we're actually doing something about it. They're talking, and we're actually acting. It's the first in a while where the Republicans are actually the ones acting on something instead of just talking about it and complaining about it. We're actually trying to do something. We did do something. Then Trump's doing something. on his own as well. Your thoughts on this and more. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
It's Wallace.
Wallace, what's happening, sir?
Oh, not too much. Hey, before I jump on the immigration thing, just your David Media Hogg update. Did you happen to see who he's going to prom with?
Who he's going to prom with? No, I did not see that.
Yeah, he is going with his boyfriend. And didn't I call it when I said he was a beta male? I called it. I called it. I mean,
you did call it.
And I'll leave it.
I was not aware, nor did I follow that one. No, that was on. I missed that one on Entertainment News last night.
Yeah. You could just Google, Media Hogg 2018 prom or something, and I'm sure he'll pop up.
There you go. Speaking of prom, I do have to say, by the way, I gotta ask about this. The prom that a lot of people go to. Have you noticed how many different high schoolers try and ask celebrities to go to prom? I know it was big news a few years ago that an adult actress, a porn star, ended up going to prom with a couple high school students. There was a video that I saw from The Rock, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. They got asked to prom with a girl, and he made a video and he said, I couldn't go because I'm actually filming, but I'm renting out an entire theater for you and your friends for prom to be able to go and watch my new movie, sort of thing. And it's hilarious how many of the high schoolers now think that prom is now something that we can use a big extravagant type of thing with by asking and inviting big celebrities and big name individuals. So I guess David Hogg would be one that would be a big name now as a quote unquote celebrity to be asked to.
It wasn't that that whole phenomenon. Wasn't that a country song? Something about who was it who sang that song? There was a country song about
prom.
Well, it was about some guy going with some chick with bouffant hair. The Kentucky Headhunters. That's who it was.
There you go.
They sang a song. Yeah. Anyway, I like the woman a little on the trashy side. I think that was the name of the song.
There you go. I'll have to listen to that one now.
Yeah. So anyway, this judge who is telling the president that he basically doesn't have the authority to end a program that was started by an executive order.
Exactly.
I don't think this judge read the Constitution. You live by the executive order, you die by the executive order.
Mm-hmm.
He can end whatever executive order he wants without reason. He just doesn't like it.
Sure. No, exactly. You signed the executive order, and that's the danger of it. When Barack Obama said that I got my phone and my pen and I'll do it, he didn't. One flaw that Barack Obama had, I got to admit, Barack Obama was a very smart individual. He was a very not smart in the sense of understanding things, but understanding the minds of manipulation and being able to advance his agenda. He was very smart in that sense, but one flaw that he had was that he did not understand the FDR long-term chipping away at things to concrete them into the system rather than just doing it on his own. Because you're right, by signing it with his phone and his pen, now it can be all be reversed by the next administration, which Trump is doing.
And I did a little thinking about this yesterday. And by the way, all these people streaming in here from Honduras, come to find out, they have no right to claim asylum. Asylum only works when you claim the next state next to you. Sure. Or the next country that you exit, which would be, I think, Mexico.
Sure.
But that aside, now I just lost my whole train of thought, and it was a great train. Oh, here it is. So these kids, these DACA kids, who were quote brought here through no fault of their own. This is the swamp. This is the left.
Sure.
This is their excuse. Now, when we look at that, and that's their justification to let them stay. Now, a baby who's put in the womb through no fault of its own, the less justification is, for that act is, well, you can just kill it. So apparently to Democrats, the right to geography trumps the right to life. Are they saying that if we wanted to kill the DACA kids, that would be acceptable? If I follow their logic, that's what they're saying. Death is better than is preferable to geography.
Well, of course. I mean, they would obviously advocate for the if you go down the abortion argument, it would go down the abortion style of, they have the choice to be able to do so. And if they could either come here as refugees and we could bring them into the sanctuary, or they could die off. But, living there apparently is the most terrible thing in the entire world. And they can't fix the system. They can't fight to fix it. And they if they live there, then they would be worse off than probably dying. So that is the mentality of the progressives. But you're absolutely right when it comes to the young individual. Look, and again, I'm not being heartless here. DACA recipients are now in their 30s. They came here as a child. They've been here illegally against their will. They've been here for I don't know how long. And if they haven't been able to fix themselves and actually correct the issue of what their parents did by fixing it, either going into a green card, work card, student visa, work visa, whatever, or starting the naturalization process within the last 15, 20 years, then that's not on me. That's on them.
Well, no, and I agree, and I don't think these people really have, any inclination of becoming citizens. I really don't. There'll be a handful, but something else you said earlier, too, about the Democrats wanted to deny Trump so they could get the issue. If we look at Ronald Reagan, a Republican, did amnesty. Mm-hmm. He signed amnesty, and the Democrats got all the credit for it. All these decades, the Democrats got the credit.
Sure.
And I got to tell you,
why he did it?
Well, he thought it would be a one-time fix, but I'll tell you what. I thank Chuck Schumer. I appreciate that he blocked it. He saved Donald, because I'll tell you, had that gone through and he did on amnesty for $1.8 million, he was done. He was over. He was kaput. And Democrats, let's just be glad they're too dumb to realize it doesn't matter what Republicans do on illegal immigration issues, what we do on gay rights issues. We'll never get credit.
Well, no, of course not, because we're the party of haters. We hate Hispanic individuals coming across our borders legally or illegally. We hate individuals that live different lifestyles, like the LGBTQ community. We just hate everybody, apparently, according to them. And even though we're the party of individual sovereignty and just you base someone based on their character, not on their skin color or who they are or what they try to identify as in that sense, we base it on their character. By that, we are a bunch of haters. So you're right. We appreciate Chuck Schumer for that sense. The fact is, though, I find it ironic is that the Democrats had their opportunity to get kind of what they wanted, and they backed out of it. They didn't do it.
Well, they're just blinded by their hatred for Trump. Sure. I mean, look what they're doing on every single nominee. They're stalling and taking the maximum amount of time. Look, the Democrats knew if they did something or they did nothing, they're still going to be in the driver's seat on the issue.
Sure.
Illegals are still going to be a reliable vote, just like the black vote is reliable. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what they do. They'll always have that vote in their pocket.
Well, and the reason, and I appreciate it, Wallace, we got to get to a break here. The reason that they didn't like it, for the main reason, even though that we gave them and we did compromise on amnesty for the DACA recipients, the reason they didn't support it or like it was because of the fact that the DACA recipients wouldn't be able to be allowed to vote for what was it, like 5 years. And they did not like that. That was their big point, because they want the DACA recipients to be able to vote now. They want illegals to be able to vote now. Look at what's happening in California. They passed legislation allowing illegal immigrants to get driver's license and to register to vote. In Maryland or Connecticut, whatever, one of the East Coast small states up there, just passed recently that they're allowed to have illegal immigrants vote. They don't care. They want them to vote. They want them to have that voice. And that was the whole point. That's the entire point of why progressives love immigration so much, love illegal immigrants so much, is because that's their voter base. Not the base, but that's definitely the icing on the cake to be able to put them over the top. And if they're able to do that for X amount of millions of people across the nation that may be here illegally, that would ensure them many elections. Both locally and nationally, by the way. We got about 45 seconds. I want to sneak in one more phone call here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, happy Wednesday.
Myron, what's happening, sir?
Hey, just wanted to remind you, if you ask any of the 5 tribes, the civilized tribes of Oklahoma, how good a Supreme Court decision is.
Yeah. How well's that worked out for them? Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
Myron, I appreciate it. That's a great point. Look at the Native American tribes. Look at the different reservations throughout the entire Mid-America region. Look at the way that the courts have handled many other issues. Just look at the Kansas Supreme Court and how terrible they've actually judged on many cases, and how they're actually the number one in the country for most reversed cases when it goes up to a district court, because they just don't have their stuff together. But we should always believe and trust in the individuals in black robes. 7 minutes to the top of the hour. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Wrapping up the program today, just a few minutes left. If you want to jump in, you're more than welcome to do so. 316-721-8255. I want to remind you one more time about tomorrow. Showing up is half the process. The first step in the way to make it happen. Americans for Prosperity hosting a day at the Capitol tomorrow, and it's something you literally cannot afford to miss. Meet with the legislators at 10 a.m. Find your legislator in Topeka, not just on their home, but in Topeka, in their office, while they're working on things. Make your voice heard there. We have the rally starting at 11:30. I will be heading up as soon as the show's done at 9 a.m. I'll head up to Topeka, and I'll be emceeing that rally. Going to be a lot of fun. Jeff Glendening, the director for the state of Kansas for Americans for Prosperity, going to join, say a few words. The president of Americans for Prosperity, Tim Phillips, will be speaking. State Senator Ty Masterson will be speaking along with myself. It'll be a lot of fun, and you get a chance to make your voice heard on taxes. Look, we have major issues, and I still haven't got a chance to do it. We'll do it tomorrow on the show, but talking about utility rates, internet, utilities, water, electric. We have some of the highest rates in the region, along with all the taxes, and people seem okay with it. We're not talking about it. We're not mentioning it. We just kind of go along about our business. Look, if you remember, the revolution started because of a 2% tax increase on sales tax, not to mention them trying to take away our guns. Ha! It's funny how that all works, right? The two important issues to Americans are guns and our money. Don't take either one of them away. I want to keep my money and I want to keep my guns. And if you try and mess with those, then you got problems, and we become complacent. We've allowed it to happen. We haven't fought as hard as we need to, and it's time for us to stand up, make that voice heard, because it is really, truly, honestly is that important. As always, we appreciate you hanging out with us today. It's a lot of fun. We'll be back tomorrow on a Thursday morning. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. There's not enough of that going around today. This is The Voice of Reason. Have a great Wednesday, everybody.